Hello, this is Jerry,
And Jacob,
and we are two unrelated brothers. Hey, welcome to the podcast, everybody. What's going on, Jacob?
and nothing much, just relaxing here at home. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same, man. Pretty much the same. It's been pretty nice. Been pretty slow. Got some things going on, but everything's good.
That's good.
So, uh, what are we going to talk about this episode?
Well, today we are finally finishing up the Fear franchise. Fear franchise. We're talking about Fear 3. Um, we wanted to play this for like a week and a half. Things popped up, schedules just didn't match up, but we finally got around to it. Thankfully, I mean, good and bad on this case. Short game, so we're able to complete in just 2 days, two playthroughs.
Yeah, I don't remember it being that short.
Me either. I think, like I said, it's because we'll jump into into it later. But like, I think it's because we played like the co-op modes like
Yeah,
way more than the campaign. Because I don't remember the campaign. Well, now I do, but before this, I didn't remember it much at all.
to be fair, we just beat it, and I don't even remember the campaign.
That's what I'm saying. Is like I guess to even with what was I trying to say? Even with how feel about this game, spoiler alert, not our favorite. We have a very special connect. This game will always have a special place in our hearts because this is the game where this is no way to make this sound right. We did go to prom. We just spent it together at my place, and what we did was just we drank some and responsibly. We were
That
what they
doesn't
gotta do? They
sound
can't
de-
lock us up. Um,
that doesn't
uh,
sound depressing at all.
no. Well, it wasn't a sad thing where we're like, oh, we're like this is sad. We didn't have dates or nothing. Just like no, we just like prefer just to stay at home and just chill, and that's what we did. And just ended up playing the game we played that night was Fear 3, and
to clear to clear
yeah.
something up,
Hmm.
this makes me more of an asshole, but I did have a prom date and I stood her up last minute, being a dumb guy, not thinking about the ramifications of that. I feel horrible.
Uh, I didn't know that. I did not, and let me clear my name. I did not know this at the time. And when I did find out, shame.
I'll tell you later who it was, but
Yeesh, yeah, that's rough. I mean, it's good you feel bad about it now, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's just one of those things you don't think about in the moment, and you're just like, fuck it. What's the worst that could happen?
yeah, you're an 18-year-old kid, a boy, 18-year-old boy. Prom means nothing other than
Hmm.
maybe, messing around with a girl or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just not, I don't know. It just, yeah, I can't make myself
I
sound good.
I understand. No, I mean, hey, it happened. Not to be too specific too about this, but it's a long time ago. Nearly 10 years since we
Yeah,
then. So how and this was kind of an accident timing wise. So how appropriate that we played this when we did.
yeah, it really was. Good timing.
Yeah. So before we jump into our thoughts and what to the game, let's go into a quick little history of it. Like I said, games around this time before I guess the PS4 generation. I guess that's the eighth generation. Whatever. There's not a lot of info as far as budget numbers that I could find. But it was published by Warner Brothers still, now that they had the Fear name to themselves. And instead of Monolith Studios, who developed the first two games, this was now developed by Day One Studios. If you remember, they did the console ports of the first Fear.
Okay, so now they're actually making this game, they're not just porting
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Oof.
So for us, that's kind of like a bad feeling because we played the PS3 version, did not like it, but apparently the Xbox 360 version was great. So at that point, maybe back then, like, yeah, maybe it's good, maybe it won't be. Um, this was released June 21st, 2011 for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. And did a little digging to see like if it had any strong competition. 2011 was a fantastic year for games, but that was in holiday holiday months. As far as the middle of the summer, they did.
Mhm.
This was good for them timing wise. The biggest names I could find were like Dirt 3, Street Fighter 4, Terraria, Infamous 2, um, NCAA football, which is not like something we would play, but it's back then that had a pretty strong market. And a couple ones I didn't know, Limbo and Catherine were released around this time too.
Really, I really
Hmm.
enjoy Catherine, so it's interesting.
Yeah, that could be on the list in the future. And I like Limbo a lot too.
That was a good one.
Hmm.
Another good one that's kind of in that realm is Brothers. That one's pretty good.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that. So I guess with this, obviously it's not Monolith, so I can't remember at the time since I wasn't a huge Fear fan back then. So I have no idea if like people were concerned about it, but considering that Day One was at least involved in the Fear franchise before, and apparently they got the blessing of Monolith too to do it, so it's not like it was bad blood or like something it was a falling out. I guess it was just like Monolith wanted to do something else, and so Day One was just still studio to get their hands on this one.
Oof. Okay, so that makes kind of makes some sense on why there's definitely some differences. I mean, maybe stylistic differences. I mean,
Yeah, that this game was definitely went in a different direction. And because of that, what was surprising, I guess, at the time, I thought it was gonna be a little lower, but it received pretty similar scores to the second game.
really.
Um, on X, and I am not entirely sure if this is like at the time numbers or like present numbers. Huge difference, obviously, but I think it's probably wouldn't be too different. On Xbox 360, Metacritic has a 75 score. On the PC and PS3, it's got a 74. It's like a little bit lower than Fear 2. Fear 2 was like around the 80s, high 70s. Amongst the biggest things against it that was criticized for were the visuals, the narrative, and the lack of scares. But many thought that the gunplay and the co-op modes were the shining points.
I would
And
agree.
I was gonna say like on generally in that, yeah, I'd say that's spot on. And while I couldn't find any exact numbers, as far as I know, it wasn't a commercial failure. It didn't flop, but it didn't sell as much as Fear 2. Which, if you're doing a franchise, you always want those numbers to go up.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
because of
mean,
that, that already started like I guess the process of like maybe this franchise isn't gonna keep going like we'd hope.
it would be cool to see it, just because it seems like they tried something. I don't want to say different because this is the next step in the game, right? Because
Hmm.
as we talked about in the last game, Alma gets impregnated by Beckett. Well, this game they're trying to find Alma, and she's going through contractions and all this
Hmm.
stuff. Like she's actually about to give birth. So, I mean, but I guess just the way they went about it was just not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's this game is interesting. It's weird, in both good and bad ways. So let's just get right down to it. We biggest difference in this game is that it's co-op. Oh, it's you can play single player, but it's definitely meant to be played co-op because Point Man is back and Fidel is back. And so if you play with a friend or whatever, then one of you plays the Point Man, one of you play as Fidel, and you go through the game like that, and then you can get one of two different endings based on who scores more points.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of fun because it does kind of, if you know this fact,
Hmm.
it could kind of sow some mistrust because there's some certain things that you can either choose to share the points, share the spoils, or steal them. And I'm not gonna lie, if you're playing with a buddy and they don't know that little, because there's like these bodies that you can kind of absorb the, I don't know, the
Hmm.
essence of, um, and if your friend's not there, and if you steal it, I don't think they'll know. I don't
I
think it'll
don't
pop up.
I don't think so either. So jumping into it right
So
here, I
yeah,
was Fidel. So he's the psychic character. So you play as your Point Man. You're basically this straight up like first person shooter gameplay. I'm more like
yeah.
can shoot like projectiles. I can like um pick up like explosive barrels, throw them, and then also I can possess enemies and then use their bodies to play as first person shooter controls. And then but then I have to like collect the souls of like the people I've killed, so that way I can like keep the possession up, or else the body will explode and I'm back to just being Fettle.
So with that being said, so playing as Point Man, you're basically it's like a continuation of the previous games. So now that you have the experience of those previous games, because I know before this was the only game you played and this was the only experience, how would you say? I mean, would you agree with the fact that the gunplay, or the opinion that the gunplay is better or worse, or like how do you feel about how did you feel playing as a stealing someone's soul and playing those FPS controls versus playing like Fatale throwing your psychic energy, whatever.
I liked it, especially since I'm not the best when it comes to FPS controls. Just flat out gonna say I suck at them. I mean I can play the games, I can beat them, but it's just not my strong suit. So having an option to just kind of do something different. I mean, one of my favorite things was to like suspend enemies up and then like shoot them, or suspend them and then you shoot them. I think that was a really cool thing to do. That was very satisfying.
Yeah.
But then obviously too, there are just some moments where like, there's just so many enemies. Like this is not gonna work. I need to like possess someone. So doing that and like jumping out and then immediately like popping up from someone and like suspending them and shooting them, stuff like that, I really enjoyed that. So I think I kind of got the best of both worlds there. Do you feel like you needed some variety, or were you like very satisfied just being Point Man?
Well, I guess because I felt like so I guess kind of OP'd. I didn't need to use the um slow-mo ability too much,
Oh yeah.
which was kind of a detriment to me because you get points for I think it was style or whatever. Like and you use those like you got a lot of those points for instance because you were throwing a
Right.
lot of Fatale's powers. You were using a lot of Fatale's powers, whereas I wasn't really slow-mowing or anything like that. So it was kind of a miss on my part. But I mean, I enjoyed it. It was a continuation of, I mean, and better in my opinion. And well, in some aspects, as far as gunplay and all that. Um,
Yeah, so I guess to kind of clear it up in case you're like thinking like who's Point Man, who's Fettle, these are the main characters from the first game, Point Man being the protagonist and Fettle being the main antagonist. And if you remember, Point Man killed Fettle, shot him in the head. And if you're thinking, well, how is he back? If you didn't play the DLC, this game does not explain it at all why he's back. I think it's just a quick throwaway line where he says, "I am connected psychically to my brother," and that's it.
yeah. So if we can go back to the first game, at the end, as Point Man, your a nuke just kind of went off,
Hmm.
um, and you're traveling away in a helicopter, and then Alma climbs up to the helicopter, and it cuts. That's the end.
Hmm.
And then the next game follows Beckett, who is raped and impregnates Alma.
Hmm.
And then this third game, it just starts off here in a jail cell in you said Brazil, right?
I think it's Brazil. I don't know if that's just a guess or at the very least South American. I know that much.
Yeah, there was a lot of favela kind of scenery. Kind of
Hmm.
reminded me a lot of that Modern Warfare 2 or Max Payne, Brazil levels.
Yeah, and the fact that it reminds me of Modern Warfare, I don't think that's an accident.
Yeah, because they were around those two times. Now there was one surprise. Just I guess I know we're kind of all over the place, but
Yeah,
you
but this
said
game's all
some.
over the place.
Yeah, the game was not. It
It's not
just
bad,
glossed
but it's not
over.
good.
Well, it glossed over a lot of things there should have been some explanation
Hmm.
for. Um, but you were telling me that somebody very, very famous, at least in the horror world, scary world.
It's okay.
Uh,
It's okay. I would be messing it up too.
yeah. That actually directed, you said at least just the cutscenes.
Yeah, they said the cinematic, so I assume that means the cutscenes.
Okay.
And that was yeah. So they got pretty well known director, the horror scene to direct the cinematics, cutscenes, what have you. And that is the great John Carpenter. If you don't know who that is, Halloween, The Thing, They Live, a bunch of stuff basically.
Surprised he wouldn't have put his name on this, to be honest.
Oh, well, he was apparently a fan, and I'm getting a lot of this info from gamers. Shout out to them as always. Um, but he was apparently a fan, and while I recognize his name, someone else was involved who I'm not familiar with, but is a well-known horror comic author, Steve Niles, and he co-wrote the game as well. And for what I was able to see, they wanted these guys involved to help with, like, I guess, the more intimate nature of the narrative, since it was heavily based on the brothers' relationship.
It
And
just
see, like,
didn't.
that makes sense. I think what you're about to say this. It makes sense, but having played and seen the end result, I feel like they just got them for nothing, because I didn't get that sense like, wow, this feels like a Hollywood writing, you know?
Yeah, it just. I mean, it was a lot of, Fattel talking in a creepy voice. Yes,
Hmm.
brother, we got to do this, brother, and blah blah
Hmm.
blah, and then a big, climax at the end. But a lot of things were glossed over. Like, why is Point Man in Brazil? How did he get there? How did Alma get? There was no explanations. Oh, okay. Next, we're going to the city. We're going back to the city that the nuke went off in. And I mean, you don't know if Point Man's been in that Brazilian prison for years, months, days, hours, and then. Why is that city still fucked up and now everybody's ghoulified? I mean, I'm
Hmm.
talking about painting with people's cut off wrist using
Hmm.
this brushes. Like okay, what's going on? And it tries to quickly solve that issue by just saying, oh, almost
Hmm.
gotten into their minds. And it's like to me that was just such a cop out, I guess.
Yeah, it's just it goes at it goes at such a fast pace, but it's not like smooth, like, oh, okay, we're just along for the ride, this is fun. It's more like we're going so quickly, and it's like, what is happening? Like, I don't know why we're doing this. Like what you said, yeah, like we jump from, somewhere in South America, probably Brazil, back to, in where the nuke went off, and then, like from, like, yeah, the suburbs, then to, like, the bridges and stuff, and then, like, to the all of a sudden to, like, the ward where Project Origin started. Yeah, it didn't flow well. It was just like, here they are, and then they're here, and then they're here, and then they're here. I didn't feel like there was any much connectivity between the settings.
Yeah, and then the style. I know you said you don't necessarily agree with this, but I thought
Hmm.
the style in the second game was like when the game was at its best. Like there was just so many crazy levels. Like when the
Hmm.
nuke first goes off and, a plane's on fire and,
Yeah.
the landing gear falls and then the school, like all that was just it was just
Yeah.
awesome. Fighting the fucking, the puppet principal who's like,
Yeah.
control people, or the music teacher. Like that was so creepy,
Hmm.
uncomfortable. That was, it was cool. And this game, I feel like didn't really have any of those moments. I don't even really remember any of the bad I guess any of the main enemies other than those annoying ass, I guess they're psychic commanders, which are
Yeah.
these kind of blue looking guys. And then towards the end when you fight Harlan Wade and he's like this insomnia looking monster.
Yeah, that fight was very disappointing.
Yeah,
We got that was pretty easy. I mean, we died, but that was more like a bullshit reason. And then when we got to it, like, that took like 2-3 minutes tops. And then we didn't do anything to, like, to cheese it. It was just straight up like, just shoot, and that's it.
yeah, and it was very oh, his throat's glowing, maybe I should shoot that.
Yeah. And then, while I would say too, like, I appreciate the atmosphere of the first game more than the second one. What I have to get the second game the the win for is, the graphics are definitely the best of the series, and two, the environments are varied, and I mean, they're varied, and it's, I want to say, more colorful, but not like in a, ooh, it's pretty kind of way. It's more like I vividly remember different sections, whereas the first game we mentioned before,
Just
since
all
it's like
gray.
yeah, it's all gray. This one, while there were different settings, different environments, and I could tell you, like, what was happening with, like, I guess, the differences in them, it was still kind of samey, even, like, unless, like the only difference I can really tell you is, okay, we're in the city, and now we're in the forest, and that's about as good as I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean it was. And I feel bad because I feel like I'm just shitting on this game just nonstop. And I
Hmm.
mean, I did have fun with it. It was enjoyable, but I felt
Yeah.
like they kind of just slapped this fear name on it and threw some last minute kind of things to say that it's Fear 3. But I mean, I was playing with my best friend. You
Hmm.
know, we're having a blast. It was
Hmm.
extremely short,
I think
but we
it took
had
us about,
fun.
yeah, so yeah, that was the big thing too. It took us about 5-ish hours to play this, 4 to 5. I'm going to say 5. So yeah, very short. I guess the idea was if you played solo, then you play about 4 or 5 hours as point man, then you play it again as Fettle, and then that's about 10-ish hours. So that's like, okay, solid. Um, I guess maybe that's because of that. That's why they added co-op modes.
Yeah, so as I was beating each level, I was actually gaining the option to play as Fattel.
Me too.
Oh, really?
I guess because since you were hosting, it would just, I guess if I was playing by myself, then I could
Okay.
like play it. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. Um, and kind of what you're saying, like it really sounds like we're criticizing this game a lot, and we are, but it's not like a shitty game by no means. It was just this is probably the most meh game I've played, I think, as far as like campaign wise. It was just there. Like there's nothing in there that's so bad I'm gonna remember it, but there's nothing really again where something so good that I remember it, you know?
Yeah, so now I know you probably remember some modes that or some moments in the second or first game that really was like, caught
Right,
your eye or scared
right.
you or surprised you even. Did you get anything like that from playing this game? And I mean, and keep in mind everybody, this game is pretty we just beat it.
Yes, that's
We just
fresh.
played it, started it like 4 days ago, maybe.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
I mean, I can remember some things. Like I know there's a store level where, like you mentioned, like these people are like pretty much like they've gone crazy with the nuke and Alma and all that. Maybe specifically like in the section where like there's TVs and like the lighting's just coming from the TVs, and you see like the silhouettes of some people running around.
yeah.
I do remember that. That was cool, but that was like very fleeting. And then I remember, um, what was it? What was it? Oh shit, that's not a good sign. Um, oh god. I mean, I remember the very last cutscene where it shows Alma making like that first contact with Fettel, and he ends up like blowing the heads off like a bunch of guards.
That was
Um,
cool.
yeah, that was cinematic. But if you're talking like specifically gameplay, then it'd be like I said that with the store. And like I said, at the top of my head, that's all I have to think of right now. I mean, shit. I thought I had something else, but I don't. What about you?
Well, I just really want to say, some of the interesting parts is one you touched on is some of the cutscenes from when they were a kid. There was no gameplay from when they were a kid,
Hmm.
but they do go back to the place where they were kind of experimented upon, which I wish
Hmm.
all of that was expounded upon more. I feel like you could have done
Yeah.
another chapter or two. I feel like you could have like we could have played a chapter as kids. Like
Okay.
in okay, what's up?
Sorry. Like, yes, that because when it showed like the before the final boss fight, it showed Fettel and Point Man as kids going to, I guess, like the house where Harlem lived, and they're like, "Oh, this is where the creep lives," because that's what they called like the apparition of him in this game.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, you afraid of him? We're gonna fight him." And I thought like, "Oh, I don't remember this part. I don't remember like." Because it kind of builds it up, leads it in like, oh, we're gonna play as them as children, right? Like I got that feeling,
Yeah.
and then it just jumps into like, oh no, they're in this section of the forest, and we're adults and fighting this thing. I was like, what was the point of that? Like, and kind of like you,
Yeah.
like the most interesting bits were those little tidbits, but they were like a minute long.
Yeah, and one thing that I thought was actually pretty cool, if you paid attention, as you completed uh, different intervals, the
Hmm.
actual start screen changed.
Yeah,
So
it did.
that was kind of cool. It was kind of it reminded me of Dead Space. Like by the time you beat Dead Space, the markers made
Yeah.
and completed. Well, this one, by the time you complete it, I guess Paxton Patel's kind of gone crazy and kind of
Hmm.
painted all over his room with like black smudge, I guess.
It's pretty crazy, kind of like the parallels this series has with Dead Space. Because one of the big things I wrote here, we were talking about with like, oh, it was, it was enjoyable, but I was playing with my friend, If just like Dead Space 3, if I was playing this alone, I wouldn't finish it. But playing with you, like, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I feel about both Dead Space 3 and Fear 3. And like you mentioned this too, it's always interesting how in each of these series, 3 games, both of them start like straight up horror. Then the second one goes for the mix of horror and action, and then the third one's go more into action.
Yeah, so there are a lot of parallels, well, at least in that aspect, between Fear and the Fear series and the Dead Space series. But I feel like it's not only that series just because, um, developers look and see what's making money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of unfortunate, right? But it's kind of the same thing that befell Resident Evil, because money walks, money talks, bullshit walks. There we go. I
There you
almost,
go. No, you got it, man.
yeah,
Beautiful.
because like even like for instance, starting with Resident Evil 4, that's known as like the gem of this series,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got Resident Evil 5, which is actiony. It's kind of creepy, but a lot of people still enjoy that. I mean, I remember
Mm-hmm.
my little brother played that for hours, and then you got Resident Evil 6, which is just a total, I mean, action fest. It's got 4 different campaigns, but it's got a lot of action in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then they kind of returned to form with Resident Evil 7, and I think that's because they were trying to see, hey, all these Michael Bay action style games, that seems to be what people want,
Yeah.
and they forget, yeah, maybe a lot of people do want that, but our fans might
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily want that. And I think that talks and that speaks with the sales and the money made for some of these games.
Yeah, it's always the fine line with horror because if you go too far in either direction, that could cost you. Um, you really do have to find that balance. And if you do something crazy like Resident Evil, I think what helped them is that they already had like 3 solid horror games on them. So when they did something different with the fourth one, instead of it being like, oh my God, they're going away from their roots, it was probably more viewed as, ooh, they're freshening it up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people hated it though. Like a lot of people talk shit on Resident Evil 6. I enjoyed it, but
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of the game from the beginning.
Yeah,
I don't really, I never really played it like that. But I played it to play with my little brother.
right.
That so I wasn't like, oh, I remember Resident Evil 4. This happened and that happened. I didn't give a shit. I still haven't even
Yeah.
beat Resident Evil 4.
You do I think you'd appreciate the remakes. You know, yeah, back to this. I think, yeah, a lot of people are disappointed. If you're a Fear fan, I imagine you'd be pretty disappointed in this game. If you're just looking for like, just a solid shooter, then you'll get your money's worth. Especially, I will give it credit here though. So when I saw the scores, like 7.5, I thought
Mhm.
that might be a little too high. But that was like right after we played the campaign. For the campaign, this may be a little harsh, but I'd say if I had to, I'd rate that like a 6 out of 10. With 5 being average, I give it a 6 out of 10.
You know,
It's just it's fine.
I want to say I just it seems a little harsh because I did have fun,
Hmm.
and one of the parts that we haven't gotten to yet was the co-op. I mean,
Hmm.
as you said, a lot of people said that was the gem. That was like what really was the standout part of this title. Which the
Yeah.
other 1 and 2 didn't. They had multiplayer, but they were just kind of throwaway sections. I would say
Yeah.
um, that multiplayer was so fun. I mean, we just got done playing
Yeah. So like that's what
fucking Run.
yeah, that's what I was saying when I had to like be very specific. Like when we just finished the campaign alone, that is what I would rate a 6 out of 10,
Okay.
including the co-op, which we just did. Specifically, we just playing like three rounds of fucking Run, where it's basically there's a wall of death behind you, and you and your partner have to go through levels of enemies to reach it to like the safe checkpoint before the wall gets you. And if one of you gets touched by it, you die, and then just kind of keep going. It's very simple, but it's really fucking fun. Because that's what I remember playing 10 years ago. I don't remember the campaign at all. And judging by the fact that I can barely remember it 2 days after the fact, there's no way in hell I remember it 10 years later. But I remember fucking Run, and having just played just like for like what, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see why I remember that. It's really fun.
Yeah, I had I had a lot of fun with that. That was, and I mean, we didn't even beat it. We died multiple times.
Yeah, but it was still fun.
Yeah, it was great. Um, but yeah, I guess like if I was just writing the campaign co-op,
Mhm.
maybe a 6.5. I'd go a little bit higher.
I just based on those 10 minutes, I'm willing to give this board game overall a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay,
So it's not
yeah,
too
I can agree
different,
with
but
that.
yeah, because I mean, we're probably never gonna touch this campaign again. But I
Yeah,
think like if there's ever a time where like, oh, we want to play a game together, I don't want to do anything like long or nothing like that. I just want to do something like quick. This is probably the game mode we're gonna play.
but yeah, I think a 7, like you were saying, is a pretty solid score given all the game modes. And we did just really play one.
Hmm.
So fucking run, but there was contractions, last stand, and all of that. Um, I would be down to try those other ones out. I think contractions just might be a basic wave kind of game.
I think so. Yeah.
But
Um,
what's up?
I say no. Yeah, you're right. I think it is. Because I think the only one we really played back then was fucking Run. But like I said, I mean that tells you how fun it is. If I'm willing to like raise the score up by a whole point just for like 10 minutes of that mode, I can't stress enough. It's really fun. If you're looking for like a fun co-op mode with a buddy, I'd highly recommend that.
Now, was this game nostalgic to you at all?
In the sense where like I said, remind me of that time. Yes, not the game itself, but just like the memory of it. I remember having a lot of fun because like I said, I'm pretty sure we beat the campaign then that same night, and then played all the other modes. So we're probably playing that game like 5 or 6 hours. We were up late. So I remember having fun there, and even though the campaign was disappointing to me, I did get that feeling again that I had playing it back then, and then especially with fucking Run. So in that sense, yeah, it was a little bit nostalgic, but not like, oh, I love this game when I was like younger. More like, oh, that was a fun time. What about for you?
Yeah, I did feel some nostalgia playing fucking Run, and there were some sections I do remember. I remember the Brazil section. I remember hating that kind of bridge
Oh my God,
section,
yes,
all those little dog monsters.
yes.
And I remember the ending because we got the same ending. This time by a much shorter margin, but still, Jacob,
Oh
you got more
yeah,
points than me.
but
Uh,
less than 1,000. I
yeah,
got less than 1,000 points. That's how I won.
yeah, but based on who wins, the ending is different though.
So like yeah, so the only thing we got both times now is with Fado, he possesses Point Man. He allows Alma to give birth to the baby. He's like, oh, I'm gonna raise it as my own, whatever. And then it's like, oh, but you have something I need, and he just eats Alma.
Yeah, that was pretty grotesque.
It is. And then if you get, I looked it up though. If you get Point Man's ending, he shoots Fettel, and then Fettel just goes away again. I assume he's dead, or maybe he's not. I don't know. He's about to shoot Alma, but I think like he hears on the radio that everything's like it's getting better. It's all good now. So he like spares her and like takes the baby and like he walks out holding it. So it's like we're good then. It's
Hmm.
hard to give a read on him because he's still mute.
Yeah, and this is one part I almost totally glossed over. They finally gave Beckett a voice.
If they made both of them still mute, I'd probably be a little more forgiving maybe. But the fact that yeah, they gave Beckett a voice and now Point Man still, especially with Point Man being the protagonist again, I very much did not like that. And especially if like the brothers' relationship is so important, have them talk.
Yeah, I agree with that 1000%.
And a little fun fact here, or at least for me, the voice actor for Beckett, Robin Atkin Downs, he played Master Miller in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Really?
Because I saw the name when I was looking at the list. I'm like, I recognize that name, but I'm not exactly sure what. He's done other stuff. But that's how I remember him since I'm a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. And yeah, he was Cos Miller, MGS5. So good for him.
That's pretty legit.
And the voice actor for Fattel, he's the original one too from the first one. Peter Lorre, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that last name right. He was Vulcan Raven from Metal Gear Solid 1.
What the fuck?
I know, isn't that pretty crazy? He also played some soldiers in the first one and some soldiers in, I want to say, I think I said Metal Gear Solid 4. But yeah, I saw that and same thing. Like, I recognize that name. Sure enough, look it up. Vulcan Raven, fucking crazy.
I just don't really have that talent for guessing or remembering people's voices, but I do know that the Metal Gear Solid series is something that's really near and dear to your heart, though.
Yeah, I guess when you play it so many times and you see the credits, the names kind of just they're in the back of your mind. So you see them and you're like, that sounds familiar. It's not like I recognize it right off the bat. There are a couple voice actors I do know. Like if it said, David Hayter, I've been like, oh shit, it's Solid Snake. Those just like they're lingering back there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Shit. Man, this one I just feel like it's really short. There's not really much to to talk about with this game.
Well, okay then. Yeah, as far as like what it is, yeah, it's not really much to say. I guess one thing I do remember from back then is the commercial it had with Marilyn Manson's Four Rusted Horses. Um, like for some reason specific, I remember like I guess like the with the Crescenza and Fattel like going crazy, like levitating people. I remember that specifically in my mind. So I had that going. So that's actually the commercial got me like, I'd be okay with playing this. And that's why I'm like, yeah, bring Fear 3 over that one night.
Yeah.
Very specific. I don't think anyone. It's not like it wasn't one of those like amazing commercials like with Dead Space or Gears of War, but it stuck with me for some reason. Um, like I said, with all that, what do you think would have helped this game narratively then? Because I think that's where the crux of our issues are with this.
I guess just delving more into some stuff that is kind of new to us. The other games didn't really talk that much about the brothers being boys. Seeing the beginning of their childhood and maybe even incorporating Alma. And how because it hinted at how the kind of the psychic link began with Alma, but going more in depth with that, it just seemed like all of a sudden one day he can't really do shit, and the next day fucking Paxton's blowing people's heads up.
Right.
So it would have been cool to expand more upon that, and to maybe even see a little bit of Alma's past, like why they chose her and why they did the things that they did to her, which I understand it's because they found out she was psychic, essentially.
Yeah.
But there's so much enterprise that was built off of her by the Armacam company, so I felt like they could have delved more into it. A whole city, for God's sakes, was kind of built in that area, and was trying to cultivate, psychic aptitudes and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think that's another big thing too. Like she's like a non-factor in this game. Like sure, it's built around like, oh, we need to find Alma before she gives birth, and that's it. Like that's her biggest role. She'll pop up once in a while in jump scares.
Yeah, not even that many.
Not even that many. Like there was literally one that got me near the end game, and that's it. It's very disappointing with her involvement, which sucks because she was pretty, at least not formidable, but present in the first two.
And see, I feel like part of that might be because of the fact that she probably doesn't want you to find her, right? Because in the first game, or in the second game, she wants you to find her, right? She's trying to bang Beckett,
Yeah.
right? So that would make sense why she's a guiding force. But in the third game, maybe she has some kind of idea being linked to the two brothers that they might do something sadly that's been done to her before, and that's take away her baby.
See, that would have been interesting. I didn't even think about that. That's really cool, but I didn't get that like hint at all. I think that would have been a very good point.
At all. Yeah, so they didn't explain anything like that, and that would be cool to have just had them mention like, oh man, she's blocking her or her signal, or however Paxton talks to her or whatever.
Yeah.
just something like that. But there was no mention of that, so I don't even know if that's even the idea behind the reason that she was seen so little.
I think that's more of us trying to give them a little credit.
I think so, and that sucks.
Yeah, like that's one of my things I don't like when people do. Like, no, you just don't understand. Here it's like if I had to try to wrap my head around it, I'd say that's a pretty good reason. But again, they gave like not even a hint. I think they just didn't know what to do with her.
Yeah, it sucks. I just don't get it at all.
Hmm. I
To be
mean,
fair.
yeah, I I know one thing I heard just randomly on a thread about this game was maybe the series as a whole would have been better dealing with like different events instead of just Alma. Because the fear it stands for first encounter, Assault Recon, the squad
Yeah.
that's meant to deal with paranormal activities.
Right. Right.
So like maybe if you want Alma to be like kind of the overlying factor in all this, like always in the background, that's cool. But like each game is like a different like main antagonist, and I think that would have been interesting because you're not tied to one narrative. You can still have it like overarching, but you can go crazy with it, which is always something fun to do with like horror themed games.
Yeah, and that to me that makes sense to me. That would have been something smart to do. I just
Yeah, but then
they
if you
just
do like
didn't.
different horror themes, if you want to do like a heavy action game, then it's like, oh, you can do that if it's like an enemy that calls for that. You know,
Right. But they didn't do it.
they didn't. They kind of focused on this it's kind of weird family drama, but I would give saying drama is giving it a little too much credit. And I know I'm being really critical on this, but it's more of like it's not like terrible. It's just like I saw what they were going for, but like kind of what you said, they just went over it and they're like, all right, that's it.
Yeah, it's just I just feel like they could have done a bit more, really.
Yeah, like we have so much to say. I think just because I mean, if the game is bad, you can just shit on it, say what's bad, and that's kind of it. Here, it's like I can see that potential, and it's just like nah, like that's it. I don't like saying this word a lot because making games is hard, but I feel like that wasn't much effort at least put into this narrative, at least in there. I feel like it didn't make it past a couple of drafts and that's it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I guess because I just remember this game being so much better
Hmm.
than what we played just now. I mean, and maybe it's because we're more critical. A lot more games have came out since then, but it just was not. It just wasn't what I remember.
Hmm.
I don't know if you feel the same way, or I mean, do you even really remember this game, or is it was kind of like a non-factor?
I don't remember much from it except for that game mode. Um, so I guess with that, looking back on that, I should have had an idea that it probably wasn't that good. Um, and I wasn't like a big fan of the series at the time, like you did, like you were. I know you played the games. I didn't until very recently. Up until we did this, it was only F.3.A. I played, so I had like no really strong memories of it. So with that, though, I could definitely see why you'd be a lot more disappointed in this game. I remember specifically too. I could tell like near the end, you were kind of like already over it.
Yeah, it was just not. Why I just saw how fast the missions were going and
Hmm.
how little was really going on at the end of the day. Like I can't really remember much about it. I mean, I remember that little Sam's Club store that you're talking about, and that was cool.
Hmm.
Like the whenever you go into the meat freezer and there's like people hung in these like BDSM kind of positions, like that was creepy,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, compared to like the school, or
Hmm.
compared to all the creepy shit that happened in the first game, like climbing up the ladder and almost standing there to scare the piss out
Right.
of you. Or they could have even did kind of what Dead Space 3 did and threw some hallucinations out there for you that I didn't see and
Right.
for me that you didn't see. Just
Hmm.
something to kind of like break up some of the monotony.
Yeah.
Well, and see, the game wasn't even really monotonous. It was action packed pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. But even there's like one of those things like you just shoot, 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 and you're just like you're kind of not even thinking. you know, which is kind of
Yeah.
what I felt like in the first one. But the biggest thing with the first one is that it was so fun. Here it's more like it's fine. Again, that is the best way to describe this game. It's fine.
I felt like they toned down just about every aspect of the game, except for the action. They boosted up the action, toned everything
Hmm.
else down. The horror elements were toned down. The gore was toned down. The story was toned down. I mean,
Another thing
that.
I just thought of too is that it it went in a lot of aspects we already know, like it went to that Call of Duty direction.
Mhm,
But
yeah.
another thing too I just thought of is that it had the whole regenerative health. This game doesn't have pickup health and armor.
Yeah, yeah, I totally forgot that the other games
Hmm.
do have that kind of health and armor bar. Yeah, that went away like around that time. Yeah, you're right. That kind of Call of Duty regen health
Yeah,
kind
and
of popped
I
up
think that's
everywhere.
yeah, and I think this is where it becomes an issue, especially around this time period where
Hmm.
where games just kind of become Call of Duty light, and that's just basically a death sentence. Either if you're gonna do it, just go all the way, but don't try to like I guess have your cake and eat it too. You know, like because at that point you're isolating both your hardcore fan base and the casual ones.
Yeah, I agree with that because
Hmm.
you're not you like you say you're not making either of them really happy.
Hmm.
um, yeah, it just I'm kind of the more I talk about it, the little bit more pissed off I get about it, to be honest.
No, this is
Uh,
good. This is good. We can't always just be happy about it. This is,
yeah,
it was disappointing. That's the best way to describe it. It was fine, but considering the past games we played, that's disappointing. And I will say though, at the very least, this game made me appreciate the second one more. I think it was now I think I was a little too harsh on the second one. The third one is probably how I would feel more accurately, how I would thought I felt about the second one. The second one now, I think this definitely I think it deserves more praise.
yeah. Okay, so that's a plus.
I must say that's one thing. Like but first one's still my favorite personally, but now I can respect the some of the things the second one at least attempted to do, even if it didn't wasn't always my preference. It didn't like miss, whereas this one in this game it missed a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I mean, the action was amped up. That was one of the better things, but
Hmm.
other than that, everything was toned down.
Yeah, and
And it's not a
man,
bad game. I'm making it
no,
sound like
no,
it's just a piece of shit, but it's. I mean, it's a fun game. We had fun.
yeah, when it's a bad game, I'm sure we'll get to one of those eventually. It'll be different because it'll probably be just us laughing at it because it's just bad, like that. It's just like kind of like a bad movie. Like at a certain point, you just kind of give up and just go like, I'm just along for the ride.
Talking about that, we should do that game, that Ride to Hell or whatever. You know what I'm talking.
That's exactly the game I was thinking of in my head.
I don't know where to find a copy of that, but that
Shit.
just seemed horrible.
See, like that we can have fun with it and just be like, because we know it's just gonna suck ass. We're not gonna have
Yeah.
expectations for it. It was just a one and done deal. Here we've gotten a taste of like, okay, it's got some horror in it. It's got solid action. In the third game, like it should only get better. But for whatever reason, whether you want to blame it on the studio, the direction of just most shooters at the time, the state of the industry, whatever it is, it just didn't work. I don't think we're alone in that sentiment too, because this was like the last main title. There was apparently a Fear Online after this.
In China, right? China and Korea.
I want to say they did bring it to America, but it was just so bad that's why it's kind of forgotten.
Damn. And see, and this one had good gunplay.
Hmm. No, yeah, like I was saying, gameplay wise, I've got nothing. This is just all like narratively. They could have done much more, and like I said, zero horror really. Um, I got nothing on that. Man, yeah, it sucks. Kind of a bitter taste in the mouth ending this series like this.
Yeah,
But I
it
mean,
would
on a
be
high
cool.
note. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it'd be cool if they could repackage this, or like you said, just get away from Alma
Mhm.
and bring back the first encounter assault recon group, to go see some other creepy shit, like, and even do some cross, like, some cross series kind of shit. Like, that'd be cool if they can go and check out the Outlast insane asylum
Um,
after the fact to clear out some of the inmates, or like that would just be cool thought.
kind of like an action version of visceral cleanup.
Yeah. Because I mean, they got to clean up all these. They got to kill all these fucking crazy people.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Like I said, you could just it would be kind of similar to what Supermassive Game is doing with their like narrative games, like the Dark Anthology,
Yeah. So I haven't bought in the last one, but I have Man from Medan and
the Ghost Ship
the
one, right?
yeah, that's the Ghost Ship one, and then there's one after that. That's
Hmm.
kind of like Silent Hills, and then the last one's called House of Ashes. So I haven't beaten the one that's like Silent Hills, and I haven't gotten the House of Ashes. But I mean, yeah, those were really fun. I enjoyed Man from Medan. That was a really cool one.
Yeah, see, I think that's cool because then, like I said, you could dabble in each one, and I feel like as long as you have, a similar style and spirit, excuse me, you can do a little crazy stuff. And if it doesn't work, then like that's cool. That was just a one-off. Now we're back to this. You can it gives you like a not an excuse to fail, I want to say, but I think it'll be people will be more understanding, like, they tried this, and like that's the end of it, and they can go do something else.
Yeah, that would really be cool. And speaking of that, maybe those are some series that we can visit later.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I mean, because I know you really enjoyed Until Dawn, and I don't think you've played Man from Medan, have you?
I've only played until done. I'm very interested in the other ones. And you know that I have to really enjoy them since those games aren't my cup of tea.
Yeah. I know you don't really like the kind of walking simulator
Hmm.
style. Yeah, so I actually have a physical copy of Man from Medan. I don't have a physical copy of the second one, but I'll definitely let you borrow that, and maybe we can do an episode or something about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I guess to like kind of wrap it all up, what for you personally, and maybe overall, what do you think like the legacy of like the Fear series is, and would you be like interested in like remakes or a revival of it?
Uh, like I said before, be super hyped for definitely a revival. Would be happy
Hmm.
for a re-release as well. Like if somebody just came in and just pimped the shit out of the first, out of all the games and redid the
Hmm.
graphics, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'd be hyped for any of that really.
Okay.
Um, as far as the series, I think I don't think it was anything revolutionary as a series.
Hmm.
You got games like Chernobyl kind of have the same vibe, not necessarily the same story at all, but kind
Hmm.
of have this vibe where you're like a soldier that's dealing with paranormal things. Um, yeah, they didn't do anything revolutionary, but they definitely had some crazy moments, some
Hmm.
crazy scenes, and definitely some interesting segments as a whole. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting series. Kind of like agree with you. This it's not gonna have like a lasting impact on the industry. I will say the biggest thing though would probably be the AI in the first one. I know that's probably it's the biggest thing it's contributed to the gaming industry.
Mhm.
Not only that, but kind of just a little bit unrelated, but in regards to the AI, the fact that Monolith, who developed the AI for the first game and the second one, went on to make the Nemesis system and the Lord of the Rings games, the Mordor games, Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. So I guess that kind of like just
Okay.
shows like how talented they are when it comes to like crafting a pretty smart AI. So I think maybe the first game could be more like that's like the blueprint, the formula of how to do it.
Yeah. Uh,
Oh my God, Leela, my cat. Sorry, my cat's on the damn table. Yeah, come
that's
on,
all
girl.
right.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah, man. And I love this series, man. It starts back on with me all the way
Hmm.
back on like the 7th or 8th grade.
Hmm.
I mean, so I have a long history with this series, so it's near and dear to my heart, especially because I'm somebody who I enjoy horror games to a point, but I'm also the kind of person I have Silent Hill 2, the OG PS2 copy. Haven't
Right.
beaten it. I have PSVR and I have Resident Evil 7. Haven't beaten Resident Evil 7 and haven't even played it in VR. Um, don't really want to buy Resident Evil 8. Like I beat Outlast 1, made me super uncomfortable. Had to do it in multiple playthroughs. Um, I have. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Sorry, I was
Okay,
listening.
okay, it's okay. No, we just been having so many connection problems. Uh,
Hmm.
that's a peek behind the curtain.
Curtain, yeah. Don't let them know.
Don't let them know. Got third world country internet. I'm paying first world prices. Uh, yeah, so
Hmm.
Outlast. I haven't even played the DLC. I have the second one, but I haven't beaten it. It's just like there's a certain point where like games are here to, at least like I said in my opinion, it's kind of like as an adult, your time is so limited. You have so many things that
Yeah.
you have to do. Um, why am I going to spend it being uncomfortable as shit?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are times where I'm in that mood. Like you're in a mood to watch, you're in a mood to watch The Thing, or, you're in the mood to watch Hereditary,
Right.
but it's not something that you're going to do every day.
Hmm.
I
Unless you're
feel
like
the
a
same way.
fucking masochist.
Well, I mean, some people love it. Some people honestly, truly enjoy playing horror games, and to a certain extent, sometimes it just becomes, let me see how I can beat the system.
Right.
That's the way it became to me. That's the way it became for me, at least playing The Last of Us, the first one. I
Hmm.
platinumed it, and I had to find out, okay, what are some exploits? What are some go arounds? Or does the AI not recognize you? And I know a lot of people get a kick out of that, especially with horror games, because it's
Hmm.
like you're kind of flipping the script.
Right.
You're taking some of the, I guess, some of the, what's the word? The
The horror out of
immersion
it.
away. Well, yeah, the horror, the immersion. You're stripping some of that away so you can kind of beat the computer, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, so teach their own, but it's just not necessarily something I want to do every day. Which I just beat The Last of Us 2 again. I enjoyed it much more the second time.
That is a story for another day.
Yes, 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 it is.
That's good to hear. I'm glad. That definitely motivates me to give it another shot. Leela, Jesus Christ, I love you, but you gotta get out of here.
Yeah, but for sure, man. Let me know and I'll let you, borrow it again. I think because part of it I didn't want to play as
Hmm.
uh you know
Wait, another time. Another time.
yeah, okay, okay.
We'll do it. We're gonna do it soon because eventually, then people who are listening just be like, "For God's sakes, just talk about it."
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, I think it's yeah, pretty much what you said. I think that's all I can really say about Fear. I don't have that nostalgic connection like you do, but I had even if the third one kind of disappointed me, I had a good time with the series. I'm glad I did finally get around to playing it.
It was a good one. Yeah, it was a good one. Well, with that being said, you want to kick off the outro?
I'll let you do it. You always say thank you first and all that.
Okay,
No
okay.
need to change up the system now.
All right. Well, that's our conclusion to the Fear 3 and I guess the Fear series as a whole.
Mm.
Um, thank you guys for listening. I know Jacob feels the same when we say we appreciate y'all listening and y'all giving your time, because I know it's you don't have a lot of it. I understand that for sure. Um, and also, be safe. We got the Omicron and now the Super Omicron Delta variant. Just got
Yeah,
found in like Russia or some shit.
we're gonna
But
have
then,
Omicron Persei 8 next.
yes, yes, yes. So, yeah, everybody, y'all stay safe out there.
Mhm.
Don't be doing crazy shit, I guess, unless that's your thing. And if it is, be safe doing it. And I love you, bro.
Yeah, like Jerry said, be careful out there, y'all. It's some crazy shit out there. But with all that being said, thank you all for listening and you know listening to us just go on and on about our favorite games and topics. I love you too, brother. Take care and be good, y'all. See ya.
See ya.